Good. So we are aiming here to gather actors of the supply chain for the private sector from the production 200 companies in Europe, operators, to be compliant with the EUDR, putting in place their due diligence, their traceability, all their procedures, and she will actually gladly share, as she has this overview, share what are the view of operators and what are they also doing from their end. So I will then actually start this panel and thank the panelists to come. And I will suggest we are starting with this overview, actually, with you, Rosie, since you have this extensive experience in working with the operators in Europe, knowing what are they putting in place, what their challenge, what they're seeing, and we'd love you to actually present that for us.
Thank you, Sandra. So I've just got a few slides which I'll also share just to talk through a case study of some operators that we've been working with in Europe. So, as Sandra said, over the last 3 years have been working with companies mainly based in Europe to support them get ready for EUDR. So just a reminder in terms of operators, so companies based within the EU, when they are importing products from countries outside of the EU, so for example Ghana or many other countries. So in terms of what an operator needs, on the slide here it shows 10 steps in terms of what's needed for a robust due diligence system. And I've highlighted in red steps 4, 5, 6 and 7. And that's really the focus in terms of where operators need support from companies and their suppliers to help them reach the regulation of the EUDR. So that's being able to have suppliers support in being able to map supply chains back to the forest or the farm of origin and to have that full traceability, and then be able to have that sufficient information to be able to conduct risk assessments and then to assess the risk of illegality and deforestation. And it's here that we really see those challenges with companies. Okay. So just a reminder in terms of what those information requirements are. So a description of the product, and in particular if it's timber or wood, to have the scientific species name of the product, the quantity of the product, the country of production and the geolocation of all plots of land of where that product was produced, the supplier name and the buyer name throughout the supply chain for the traceability, and then evidence of that the product is deforestation free and verifiable evidence of compliance with legislation. So this could be satellite imagery for deforestation, for legality, it could be VAT invoices, it could be trade and transport documents, etc. So that's what operators need. If you move on to the next slide. So this is an example of a company that we've been working with and their kind of experience and what they've been implementing for aligning with the EUDR. So they're an EU-based company, albeit they're sourcing globally from many countries in the world, and they're a motor vehicle manufacturer. And then they source, so they're sourcing wood and then rubber in terms of both tyres for cars as well as rubber for engine parts as well. So having worked with them, what do they need when the EUDR came apparent? So first of all, to understand they've got some systems in place and they're working with other regulations already, but where are their gaps in their current systems? Where have they got policies and processes that need to be updated, and where are there completely new processes that need to be added? And then really that critical piece in terms of supplier information and being able to gather that information. So they needed a tool or needed a tool and methodology to be able to gather the data. And then also one of their key issues was then they had a deforestation-free policy, but how do you then align that policy with the definitions of the EDR? So this is what they saw as their first critical steps of the EDR and complying. Okay, so then in terms of this company and how they then proceeded to align with the EDR and what was the strategy they needed to put in place. So the first piece is really on the data collection, and we've seen lots of companies are starting from different places, but particularly when they're at the very far end of the supply chain, when they're retailers, manufacturers, traceability can be very poor, and lots of companies are starting from places not having any traceability whatsoever. And that may also vary between what the product is, and that was the case in this example. So being able to identify what are the key products that are in scope for them, and identifying they may have products that were also outside of scope of the regulation, so then not to proceed any further with that. So then to be able to trace their supply chain back, once they've identified that a relevant product is in scope, and then identify where there's a risk of mixing, and where there's a potential for mixing with material of an unknown origin. And then the second point for them was really like a key decision point, at which they make the decision how business critical is that product for them, and do they decide to continue placing that product on the market, or if it isn't business critical, not to. And then if they do, what are the possibilities and what are the options there? Is there an option of certification? For some of those products it is. For timber and paper, it's widely available. If you come to something like leather, it's far less available. So making that decision on what route to take. And then thirdly, supplier engagement, so really working with the supply chain and working with the actors in the supply chain beyond their direct supplier. So they might have that contact with the direct supplier, but then trying to work beyond that, so to do supply training, and then also monitor the status of data that they're then gathering and working towards that. And then finally, risk assessment and risk mitigation. So once you've done all these steps, for this company, it was then, okay, now we can begin to gather the, we've got the data, so now we can begin to assess it. If high risk is identified, then what are our options in terms of mitigating that risk? So this was the action plan or the strategy in order to align with the EDR and align their business to it. Okay. So yeah, just in terms of risk mitigation, what their options were. So it could be gathering further information, it could be conducting on-site audits, and that could be the company doing it themselves, or it could be a third-party audit, or it may be a supplier further back in the supply chain doing an audit of another supplier. Scientific testing of products, so it's widely available for timber and less so with the other commodities, albeit I understand that it is becoming available for cocoa. And then using certification, or if that's not possible, to try to work with suppliers, but in some situations to either change supply chain. And then crucially, it's important for them to record the risks that have been identified, and to document how they're addressed, and then crucially to make sure that any non-conformities that are raised, that they're closed before that product is placed on the European market. So yeah, in short, that's a brief summary in terms of the experience of some businesses and what they're doing to align to the EDR and some of the steps that they're taking.
Thank you very much, Rosie. I invite the panelists to sit back here for this presentation, explaining what, how operators are also, what are they putting in place, and giving us an example. Of course, we cannot quote any name here, but it's actually, from what we understand, also it's not an exception what they are putting in place here. It's also similar activities across different operators. So now we are seeing this. I would like to go to the producing level with the Farmers Association, and also hearing you, Isifu, hearing your point of view with this AUDR coming into place, and we've heard about that already since some months and years. What are the view from smallholders, from farmers? What also initiatives are done and how do you also get prepared for this regulation?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I would want to say cocoa farmers in Ghana are highly prepared because of some level of capacity building that have been provided by Cocoa Board and other private actors. As we speak, some grants have been given to Ghana Civil Society and Cocoa Platform through GIZ and Oxfam for cocoa farmers, cooperative unions, and local NGOs to train farmers on the issue of EUDR. And myself, I was given 4 districts: Sefibekwa district, Boakon district, Enche district, and Asankregwa, to train cooperative farmers about the issue around EUDR. And looking at the level of training, you could see that farmers have also got to realize that with this current trend of impact that we are seeing from the weather, it means we have to also go by what the European Union is saying. Because today we are negatively impacted by the weather condition, and we are losing most of our production because of the heavy sunshine. When you plant seedlings, looking at the survival rate is less than 30% because of the heavy sunshine. And current cocoa trees are also dying off because of the current weather conditions. So farmers, we can't run away from the fact that we shouldn't comply. We have to comply and also understand the current situation. So we've received some level of trainings, but looking at the grants and what Cocoa Board have done, I may say that it's not all farmers that have been able to get a clear understanding of the EUDR. If you take percentage-wise, I would say if we have 100% cocoa farmers, about 40% are farmers who can clearly explain what the EUDR is all about. The rest of the 60, they don't get the informations and the training, because the downstreaming training is very costly. Myself, I only mobilize farmers at the district level. If you take Enchi, they have more than 100 communities, more than 30,000 farmers. How can you bring all these farmers on board? So you have to select cooperative leaders to come, receive the training, and also go and downstream the training to other farmers. But they don't have the capacity to do that in terms of funding. So I would say that yet there is a lot to do in terms of building the capacity of farmers to agree with what is happening today. Within that, the sustainability that we are all talking of is in danger in terms of cocoa production in Ghana.
Thank you very much for sharing this. We understand that training is done and there's still needs for more training to cover all the rest of the 60% you're mentioning, right? Thank you very much. I'd like to hear also from a major actor, of course, here, Barry Calibo, Ghana, being an important LBCs here, and understanding also from at your level, how are you getting ready so you continue to be a key actor on this market?
Thank you very much. So from our side, I think somewhere around 22, 23, we got this hint that the regulation was coming, and that is where our preparation started, actually. So what we did first was to set up a team to assess our supply chain, to see where we have risk that needs to be addressed in order to be compliant. And the team recommended some action plan that the whole company needs to follow, and that trickled down also to us in Ghana. And what we did first was to change our sourcing model. So in our model, we had traceability has been a core part of our model, but the time that the traceability happens was a question. That was one of the risks that was flagged, because you sometimes along the season, and we work with other partners. So for example, we have purchasing clerks that supply to us, and they deal directly with the farmers. And alongside the season, a purchasing clerk can come to our sourcing team on the field that they have new farmers who are coming on board and they want to join our program and they want to supply. But we realize that that poses a risk for us on buying before assessing. So we needed to change that, and what we did was to put in place a strict traceability system where you first of all need to register a farmer, you need to map, which is the crucial part of all the assessment that we are referring to, and do all the legality and the deforestation compliance check before you admit the farmer into the supply chain. This has not been easy from the start because we are in a competitive environment. And if you tell the farmer that today the farmer's beans is ready, he wants to supply to you, tell him, oh, I cannot take your beans. I need to map your farm, do all the assessments, and make sure you are compliant before I buy. It's a real challenge. But that is the decision taken by the company, and we are ready to take the hit for that, even if there is a drop in volume that we source. So, for first point is to make traceability a straight requirement before anything. And that involves mapping the plot, doing all the assessment, and make sure that the farmers are compliant before we onboard them into our supply chain. The second aspect was to embark on intensive sensitization in our supply chain, right from our top level to the farmers who are our major stakeholders, to make sure that they really understand what the regulation is about and what we require them to do, and what kind of support that we are also ready to provide them. So we embark on those sensitization, and that brought a level of cooperation between us and the farmers especially to be on board on this regulation. The third factor that we have put in place is to look at the aspect of technology, because all of a sudden we realized that our data requirement to be compliant is not business as usual, and we couldn't continue what we were used to. So we look at technology that will help us to be more efficient, and that involved us getting in touch with more technologically advanced companies. So we work with companies like, I don't know if I can mention their name, but yeah, like Airbus, who provide us deforestation assessment report. So we share all the information that we have. They did the assessments and they shared with us where the risks are. And they continue to provide us continuous alert report, whenever there is any disturbance in the plot that has been assessed. So this is a continuous partnership. So technology has been a key part. And also to automate our processes, because we were ready for this year, 24-25 cocoa season. So, and we realized that you cannot use a normal manual process to achieve compliance. So we make sure that our processes and our systems are automated, and that will make sure that you get the real-time data to make decisions. So we have also looked at the technology part to tackle that, and that has really helped us. And I think when we talk about the opportunity, that is one aspect that I think this regulation has brought to us, because there's more commitment from our decision makers to make investment in technology that is helping us a lot. And last aspect is on, so you want to be compliant, you have done traceability, you've mapped the plots, but how are you sure that the farmers are compliant to the system that you've put in place? So we have also instituted what we call yield control, and also grievance mechanisms, where for the yield control is to make sure that the plot that we have mapped and we have in our system, we know the capacity of the plot, and we know how many volume of beans that we expect from such plot, so that there is no infiltration. And once a farmer reaches the limit, if we will do assessment to know what is the factors behind the farmer reaching the limit or exceeding the limits, and whether we can still accept or not, so that we avoid the issue of infiltration of beans from non-program farmers into our program. And also grievance mechanism, because we are also anticipating issues of child labor and forced labor, so that people can report to us, and then those issues can be addressed. And with all this, we are sure that we can be compliant with the regulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very detailed answer. I'm going back to you, Isifu. You heard what an LBC and purchasing clerks are asking, and what they are expecting from farmers. How do you react to that, and what are your challenges also that you are facing?
So my response would be that with the private sector, they are looking at how they will get profit out of what they do. And considering the investment that COCOBOD has made, I think that is the way to go. Because there are duplications of system around a specific district. You can get 5 private sector doing the same system with one farmer. Barry, Tuton, whatever, they will be doing the same system with one farmer. So to me, I think that what COCOBOD has designed, where we want to enroll every farmer to a database that will be robust enough to track, will be the best way to go down, leaving the system to private sectors to come down to deal with farmers in that angle. Because we've received several reports, several issues that cocoa farmers have been confronting for the past years with the systems that LBCs tries to build around the farmer base. So to me, I would think that looking at the EUDR, that we want to onboard every farmer on board, we should have a clear direction, a clear system. We shouldn't allow the private sector to come down to do that with the farmer. But they should pass through COCOBOD system, because COCOBOD have already built a system that through that system you can get the information you want. So why should we allow private sector to come down there, do their own mapping, whilst we will be having a general mapping for all farmers? So to me, this is what I see on the grounds as a big challenge to we the farmers, because you can get, and it comes with the same questions. And farmers, the more you ask questions around one thing, then they always become confused. Because LBCA would want the data from a farmer. LBCB wants the same data from the same farmer. At the end of the day, during the cocoa purchases and that system, you are not able to differentiate between what system are specific LBCs running. So if you are to streamline one system that at the end of the day, we know that the EU wants to achieve this. So if COCOBOD has already put in this system in place, why won't we work around that area and see how best we can all achieve the set goal that EU is setting for cocoa commodity?
Thank you very much. So we understand the confusion among the duplication of several systems, right? And you are there and have to answer this. Good. So I'm coming back now to the operator level. So seeing also all what operators are putting in place, what are the challenge from operators' perspective, Rosie, in trying to especially gather those information from the producing countries? Can you share that with us?
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, so from the operator's perspective, the piece around traceability and traceability throughout the whole supply chain is a real challenge. particularly when you've got supply chains, then there may be many actors in those supply chains, 8 or more actors, and so on. And having that traceability back to the actual farm level. And then another struggle that we've found companies are having is then with the geolocation data, and also having the geolocation data that is in a format that can be used, so in a GeoJSON format that can be uploaded into the EU Traces system. We've seen lots of examples of companies asking their suppliers for this information, them receiving the information, but it's in a format that can't be used. So that's another challenge to get around that and to have data that is available. And then also access to accurate geospatial data and the geospatial layers that make up the data. So there might be a mapping system they can use, but if it's not up to date or if it's incorrectly mapped, there's this real risk of false positives, of companies identifying that there is a risk of deforestation, but actually it's been mapped incorrectly, so a deforestation risk has been alerted, when actually it isn't the case. And then when do you know, when do you need to do real verification, or is it just a false positive that's been raised? And then there's the risk of mixing, so you might have very good systems in place, but then at a certain point in the supply chain, if that product is then mixed with material of an unknown origin, that can be an issue, and how do you then segregate the supply chain throughout the whole supply chain to whatever the final product is. And then finally, another really key challenge is about the difficulties within the legislation and where there are differences between the legislation and the guidance documents and which to follow. And then also, if you're a company that's sourcing from many countries in the world, how do you then relate that legislation to each of those different national contexts? And that's where we see that companies are struggling at the moment, and where there are challenges that need to be resolved and addressed.
Thank you. It's very good to hear this perspective. We heard also with what you said, Mr. Amoa, that we want to have more dialogue also with what's going on in Europe, and this, bring us more information also on what are their challenges from their end. And we should keep in mind that the responsibility is back on them if they are not compliant. Regardless the information they are gathering from us here, they will remind the sole responsible of the veracity of the information. Let's try to be positive, and I have a last round of question, more on the positive side, and we heard for the first panel that this AUDR has also trigger more dialogue and more transparency, cross-sectorial. What about the private sector? And asking you back now, Barry Calibo, what opportunities you also see that the regulation has brought to you and your type of organization? Can you share that with us?
Yes, sure. I have some. Yeah. So opportunities. What we see, and I wanted to come from where Isifu frustration is. I see more of now the opportunity for collaboration and partnership in the industry to address the issue, because we have all been talking about sustainability, and that is what we do. Some of us, that is what we also do for a living. And we have not been able to arrive at the right result that we aim at. And with EUDR, there is a common platform, and now when you meet industry players, everybody is talking about the same topic, and people are ready to collaborate to tackle the issue head on. So I think that is a good opportunity that the regulation brings for more partnership and collaboration among industry players to address the burning issue of deforestation and climate change. So that is a good thing for us. And also there is more of transparency and traceability. There's more investment, as I mentioned earlier. There's now more investment towards traceability and ensuring that there's transparency in the supply chain, which is good, and able to avoid the unethical practices in the industry. And it also offers a good opportunity for level playing field. And that is my question that I asked initially to Mr. Amoa. how we avoid the other people who are not covered under EUDR destroying what we achieved through EUDR, and that is a critical point that we need to have. But I think the regulation offers us a level playing field to make sure that we all work towards one objective, that is protecting our environment, whilst also earning from the cocoa that the farmers have graciously planted and offering us a source of livelihood. So that is one aspect, and also the opportunities for more investment also into biodiversity and forest restoration, which now most of the discussion, people are more receptive to talk about this investment than previously we were used to. And within Barry Caribou now we have a project that we call the Payment for Environmental Services, which we pay farmers for planting trees on their farms and taking care of their farms. So all these investments, the willingness to do this investment is coming because of, also in part because of the regulation. So this is also offers us a good opportunity to invest back in the restoration of the environment. And finally, I think one aspect is also for clarity in terms of compliance on the regulations, because we are used to a lot of certifications, and I think that is also one of the frustrations that Isifu was trying to express. We started with Woods, Array on a different angles. They all have this component of deforestation, but we asked ourselves whether we were able to achieve the right result that it was intended to. And I think that everybody has his own answers in the head. But for us, I think this regulation offers us a simple process to make sure that we resolve our environment and gives more clarity on compliance of what we need to be to protect our environment. So it's a good regulations, and it offers us all good opportunity to make sure that our environment is protected whilst doing our business as cocoa farmers.
Thank you very much for this positive note. I want to answer the same question to you, Isufu. Do you think this regulation is bringing also opportunity for farmers, cocoa farmers?
Yes, but if I want to just give some few clarity. One challenge has to do with land accessibility. Cocoa farmers always want to look for a fertile land to plant their cocoa. And when a farmer wants to get a land, he doesn't engage cocoa board, or cocoa board doesn't come in. And there is no law that compares somebody who has developed an interest to be a farmer to go to any institution to look for land. So as an association, what we've planned doing is to also reach out to Forestry Commission. Apart from cocoa board, they should also give us a data that clearly gives us the reserved forest. As we speak, we have 75 cocoa growing districts in Ghana, 10 regions. If they can provide us with the forest reserved for the 10 cocoa growing regions, so that if cocoa farmer wants to move from one region to another to go and search for fertile land, we can be promptly see that no, this land is reserved. It is not earmarked for agricultural purpose. Therefore, you shouldn't go there. Within that, when a farmer wants to get a land, he doesn't go to cocoa board or forest commission. So before we realize, the farmer have already planted his cocoa farm. So I think we have to look at that angle too. And looking at the opportunities, yes, this has created an avenue for several engagements. Several private sectors come to farmers to engage them, to let the farmers understand what they think, the support that they will give to, particularly looking at the cost of production today and how to maximize yield. So this have opened up opportunity for one-on-one collaboration. Cocoa board severally engage us to let us also understand the consequence if farmers do not abide by the regulation. So all these things have given us a new direction, such that we also think ahead, so that we wouldn't see the situation like we are leaving the other actors to only operate, but farmers are directly involved to also support in terms of the EUDR, because we know in Ghana that most of our cocoa beans find itself at the EU market. So if we don't support Cocoa Board and other actors, and at the end of the day, EU decide not to buy cocoa, the end or the bottom consequence comes to the farmer. So I think a lot have been done, and we are also seeing to support with the other value chain actors.
Thank you very much. I like this thinking ahead sentence, like that very much. My last question will be to you, Rosie, because before we open the floor for questions here, since you are used to work closely with operators, can you share also what they are telling regarding possible opportunities also they've had with this regulation, and how this might have either facilitate their work or bring additional opportunities? Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So yeah, it's always easy to focus on the challenges, but we are seeing some opportunities, and I think the point's been raised about having more transparent supply chains, as well as I think also long-term supply chain relationships as well, so longer-term relationships with suppliers, and that's beneficial for both the supplier and for the company in terms of, say, cost and quality of a product, and having better dialogue with all those actors in the supply chain. As well as it's a drive for innovation that we're seeing from companies, and looking at the overall sustainability of how products and materials are designed. So there's an example of rather than using one product, or rather than using leather, is it possible to use plant-based materials and so on. So yes, there's the possibility of innovation. And then finally, in terms of the overall goal of deforestation, and for companies to be able to meet increasing demand from consumers on deforestation-free requirements, but also from investors for those deforestation-free requirements there as well, and that to help support by companies complying with the EUDR, that to help them support in their reporting as well. So, yeah, that's where there are some of the opportunities from the EUDR.
Thank you very much. I would like to not steal more time in speaking, and rather let the audience invite you, if you do have questions, to our panel here. So we would like you to say just your name and your organization, and then put your question.
Thank you. My name is Ernest Dandy, and I work with Sukten. Okay, so first of all, maybe let me start with a remark on the duplication of systems among experience among farmers. Okay, so I would say, so far as we don't have any common platform where farmer information, and also especially with regards to sustainability is concerned, and also so far as there's no maybe legal backing restricting farmers as to how to associate with operator and supplier, for example the LBCs. We keep on seeing some of these things. It will keep repeating, because at the end of the day, you go there, you register a farmer, you leave, and another person comes in. Because of the benefits that are likely to be received, you will see the farmer registering, having a multiple registration among operators and also LBCs. So for me, I think we need to work towards maybe getting a system where a farmer can be tied to either an LBC or maybe an operator. That might be the solution. Okay, so now my questions to the cooperative chairman. How well have farmers been educated to come to terms with the fact that once one farm, if you have multiple farms and one is non-compliant in terms of EUDR, the rest should be all that is in the beans will not be sourced. It will be taken out of the chain. And then the rest will be sourced as maybe non-conventional, conventional beans. How well are farmers, because this is very, but I'm asking this based on experience. We interacted with farmers and then we realized that this understanding is really not there. So I don't know the area where you trained, if the farmers really accept this, that once, if you have 4 farms and one is not maybe EUDR compliant, the rest we will not, we don't have to source your beans, the rest of the 3 plots or maybe the rest of the plots, we don't have to buy the beans and then maybe you as EUDR compliant, because there is a window, create a window for, so I don't know how your farmers are well acquainted with this understanding. Now to Barry, you talked about automation, automating the disability system. I think this is a very good policy, because now, so far as operators are concerned, if you do not validate and verify the traceability, the beans will not leave the district port to Cocoa Board, let's say Tema or Takrade. But then don't forget, somebody should be there. The system itself cannot be entering the traceability data. So I want to find out also for ourselves what other supporting structures we have put in place to help us achieve this. And also, how can we avoid mixing, yes, at the community level, especially when it comes to segregating at the community piece, because this is where we really need to tackle. We already foresee some of the challenges when it comes to segregation at the PC level and also coming. How can we manage possible, or let's say the potential mixing that can be envisaged from the community and also the PC shares? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sugden. Actually, we also appreciate if you share your, your comments as well, not only questions to the audience. So thanks for sharing this. So we have 3 important questions. Let me ask you, Isifu, to answer the first one.
Yes, I would say that it's not all the farmers who have gotten the clear understanding as to how the EUDR is. But looking at the education that Cocoa Board have given, in particular with the question is asking, when Cocoa Board comes to map or take measurement of your farm, for instance, and you have more than 3 farms, they tell you that we have to color your farms for you to know that this your farm, which is 2 acres, is color red. This your farm, which is 5 acres, is color black. This farm is this color. So when you, the farmer, harvest the cocoa from that farm, when you are bringing the cocoa to the LBC, you tell the LBC that this is the farm that my cocoa is coming from. And there was a system that the LBCs pass through where they have that equal data of the farmers. So if you're a farmer and you come to a LBC A and you bring that cocoa, the LBC just key in and then that cocoa data comes out. So to me, some farmers have gotten trained about that, but because of lack of funding, as Michael Amwa, deputy, said, and as I also said, if you look at the funding that EU gave to the civil society platform to train farmers, it wasn't enough. And looking at the capacity of Cocoa Board too, they were not able to get all these 1 million plus farmers on board to give them this education. So I think there is still time for us to still ensure that at the end of the day, all the farmers will be able to understand this kind of systems, particularly if you have more than 1 cocoa farms.
Thank you, Ernest. So on the issue of automation, of course, the machine itself cannot work. So when you come to GhanaWeb, we have alongside sustainability, we also have EUDR department with a manager. So we have EUDR project manager, and his responsibilities ensure that we are compliant, and he manages all the tools and the system that we have set in place. And he has a team running right away from the district up to the port level before cocoa board take over the beans that we give them. So we have people who are also working with the systems in place. And for mixing, it's a challenge that we face. But as I mentioned in my earlier presentation, we have in place a yield control. So for the past 2 years, we employed the services of a research organization to do a yield assessment of all the farmers from the various districts. So for each, we call it the agroecological zones, we have a data on what the yield is based on the farm sizes. And that is what we are using for yield control. So every farmer can only supply to us up to the limit of his capacity based on the plot. Two, that is a way that we are using to minimize, I wouldn't say to just do away because of issue of size selling. If a farmer sells some of his beans to other company, then you don't have a full complement of the volume from the farmer. But we have a straight yield control system. Once the farmer gets to the limit of that, he cannot apply. And we have also a yield control for a PC, because a PC comes with a certain number of farmers, and we have a capacity that a PC can supply, so that the PC also does not mix from other non-program farmers. So this is the system that we have in place to minimize the issue of mixing. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we have several hands up. Mr. Amwa?
I'll be brief. I want to keep some clarity. And we all know and agree that without having physical possession of the cocoa, you lose traceability. So if you have a private system, and the law is said that the cocoa will come into Cocoa Board's warehouse, you have lost traceability of that cocoa. So what we have decided to do is, we are trying until you are part of that dry run. Try with 6 companies from this month. We started, well, should have engaged you this week. From this month, we'll start a dry run to build credibility. What it is that private sector doesn't believe in the system, even though we have done a lot. So we'll try dry runs with them so that they can look at it alongside their system. Where they have issues, they raise these whole things about collaboration. They raise the issue together, we'll solve it. Then they build that trust in it, then we'll stop using any private system. If you want to use it, we'll still charge you a fee for the data we give you to discourage you from having a private system. We need to put the investment where it is so that we don't duplicate efforts. What we need to do is to ensure that the system is credible. So we have grievance system for you to make all, we don't drive around with cargo. Oh, you bring the issue, together we solve it. Other than that, what Isifu said is true. Once you lose fiscal possession, and you will definitely lose it because you bring it to Cocoa Board. When we said those private systems who want to use their system to come up and bring disclosure and all those things, we had challenges integrating their system with our system because most of them, I'm sure yours is also the same, those at the back end are not in this country. You know, so there were challenges with syntax, with language that is used, definitions and all those things. You couldn't integrate. And you will lose possession of the cocoa. So if you lose the possession, you can't probably link with ours. Then you lose, you can provide the data you want to. So let's all come together and agree that we need a utility system. We'll work on it. Thank you.
Thank you for this addition. We'd like to, I think Tuto wants to say something as well.
Just to add to what Mr. Anwar is saying and all the comments. We are in the industry. We know what we do when we buy cocoa. We are like lions when we are buying cocoa. You were talking about blue farms, green farms. You yourself as a farmer, when you have let's say 1 sack, half a sack, and 1 cup for another farm, will you put half on this mat and put half on that mat? You won't do it. You will mix it. Okay, so that process is already gone. For us to be successful, we have to be very simple. Last year we couldn't do EUDR if EUDR had come on. And looking at how the industry has to change in terms of financial structure to buy cocoa. Private sector were funding on ground and also funding Cocoa Board at a high level, paying twice. So when you talk about, okay, we charge, but we are funding the country. So when all those things come into play, then there is no way we can find a solution. So what I'll talk about is, just as preferred by nature, you've been able to get money to organize this, get more of that money, Kokobo, let's sit together. If it's even, fortunately, make available your platform, your entire data, give it to private sector, let's work with it. Let's see how we can come up with a very simple solution, very simple, that works for everybody. We shouldn't complicate it, like all these petty examples don't work. When I need the cocoa and have given you the money, and I'm putting pressure on you giving the cocoa, will you go and check which farm it came from? You won't check, you won't know it. So let's be very simple and do what is pragmatic. The basic thing we want here is cocoa shouldn't come from the forest. And we should be able to trace, if it is even to 10 farms, and we know that it's going to the 10 farms, but you can trace to those and we can reduce our risk. Perfect. So please, let's do that.
Thank you, Ernest.
So Sandra, a quick one then. I think we have been talking about this, but I haven't heard anything on the land user rights. So if you look at traceability that we are talking about, so from all the comments, I get the feeling that we're able to get the polygons of the map of the farm and all those ones. But if you look at the presentation in the EU that they shared, they mentioned one point on land user rights. How are we dealing with that bit of the land user rights to be able to even ascertain that the land belongs to the farmer, therefore he now conforms to the traceability? I haven't really heard any feedback from that sense, so if any clarity is there, can help. Because it's one of the
You want to clarify?
highest challenge.
You have an
No,
answer.
you want to
You also
clarify?
have an answer. If you read the guidelines on the EUDR, clearly states what is important is the use right, not the same documentation. Once you know the person on the land, you want the person to account for his action and inactions. So land title is not, unless it's a law, then under legality, you need to meet that law. So it's not compulsory, it's not mandatory. But just to add to what Ernest said, and that's the essence of the 6 companies that we have selected, is to sit down. What we have done with Calgary is to come with a model that we'll all be using based on the lessons learned. So the 6 companies that we have selected to do is exactly what you just said. We'll run it, we'll all learn lessons from it, and come up with a model that we'll replicate in October. So what we are saying, we've catered for it. We selected 6 companies. We'll do that. Meanwhile, with Calgary, we are doing up to operator level. So that moves beyond LBC to test the trace system and see whether to pass the test. Here again, we'll learn lessons, we'll share, all to shape. The bottom line of what I'm saying, that let's all agree that we are using one system. And let's all work towards making that system perfect. It's not about paying or not paying, but in need, once you agree on the system, you also need to maintain the system. It will cost. You need money to maintain the system. But the idea is almost the same as what you just said.
Thank you for the addition.
Thank you. So my name is Abdul. I work with Nestle. Okay, so I mean, I have the feeling that, and I think Ms. Amwa, you mentioned it, that the private sector do not trust your system, right? What makes you think so, right? Identifying a problem is part of solving it, right? What makes you think that the private sector do not trust the system? Number 2, we are talking about a system, right? And the system is subject to an attack. If you are advocating for a unified system, what systems do you put in place to protect that system, right? In an event that that whole system collapses, what happens to the cocoa industry in Ghana, right? Because the buying and selling is going to be riding on this system that you're advocating for everybody to use. That's number 2. Number 3, I would want Evans to share a little bit more on the grievance mechanism, right? Because per our setting, right, and at the behest of Rainforest Alliance, they have access and address, right, at the society level. And I know ICI is also pushing some community level initiatives, platforms where people can report grievances. What we notice is that people don't usually report, okay, and it's a cultural thing. It's not a negative thing. So you mentioned it when you were talking about your level of preparedness towards the EUDR compliance. Do you have maybe practical examples of the nature of grievances people come to share, and whether you do really document this? Because that's where the issue is. I mean, I can have a challenge with NS and I'll say, NS, somebody did something. Can you help me address this matter? It's not going to be documented, but indeed at the landscape, there's an issue. Okay, can you share a little bit more how probably you are navigating this, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will appreciate a short answer, but Mr. do you want to answer the first one? Yeah.
So the issue is that we have never been in that space. I was tracing from hereditary. Over time, we have built a mistrust. We're a bit opaque. It's just recently that we decided to open up. So that historically is there. The trust issue is there. That's the first thing. Then secondly, the issue of the question you asked, how robust is the system? Because I have my 4% at stake. So how we want to approach it is open up. Look at the system. Critique the system. And as you agree with you, we've had about 4 or 5 sessions with experts from all the companies with systems to critique the system, hit the system. We all provide solutions so that we move. So these 6 dry runs we're doing, it's all part of building credibility in the system. With issue of robustness, we have 2 data centers, one in Kumasi and one in very modern state-of-the-art data center. And we've trained, people have gone abroad, trained on data, cyber security and other things. Areas there, the main guy was saying it's gonna, the training that we're giving to them, and also that we have backup. It's just not one center. We have 2 centers, one in Kumasi, one in Accra. Thank you.
So thank you. On grievance, you are right. I think we have a culture where people don't really want to report. Our objective for the grievance system that we have in place was on issues of forced labor, child labor, and contract-related issues. But so far, what we have been receiving, in summary, relates to money. Premium, issue relating to premium. This is where farmers feel comfortable to report. All other matters are just insignificant, but that is what I can say on that. We do receive, but it's more related to money.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the time and looking at the Danish embassy here. Maybe we can have a last short question. Yes?
We have an issue with reforestation. We have degraded forest reserves, which are under a gray area, which now the EUDR plus the consortium of buyers plus the cocoa board on cocoa coming from deforested forest reserves, which we are trying to do reforestation. And then there's a lot of cocoa encroachment. These are historical. How do you address this challenge? You know? Because we are trying to do a reforestation and then we get frustrated by the cocoa farmers competing on the land. We are trying to bring them together, bring us and the farmer together, but in the interim, how is that verified? That's why I asked the question this morning. How do you verify where the cocoa is coming from?
In terms of EUDR, what is important, if you look at the definition of the forest, land use is important. If the land was for agricultural purpose and you have reforested, definitely when you convert it to agriculture, it's not deforestation per EUDR definition of the forest. So, critical question we need to ask is that, was that land demarcated for agricultural purpose? No. If not, then there's an issue we need to engage in and deal with it.
Thank you for the short and concise answer. So just for sake of time, I know that there are very interesting questions. I suggest we continue with this question, in a more informal way at the cocktail reception. But first of all, I want to thank the second panelist here to take those hard questions from you all. So thank you very much. So we're coming to the end of our day. Of course, we would have want more time, but it's getting late, and we have some drinks and food that is waiting for us. I will just, I was thinking how to close this and to make a wrap up, but I decided just to quote some of the words or sentences I've heard during this afternoon, not in an order of importance, but in order that I remember. So the first one being to avoid to duplicate effort, right? The second is to have more sensitization, more raising awareness, more capacity building on this topic of AUDR. The third is to have a more simple system. Let's talk more simplicity, I've heard. Of course, I need to quote you of thinking ahead, very, very important. And another one is that we are no longer doing business as usual. So with this, I would like to thank you. I will first of all leave the floor to the Danish Embassy to also close this event. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, I will just wrap up today on a more practical note. And good evening, by the way. I am the head of trade here at the embassy. We would really like to invite you all for some networking and a drink in the ambassador's garden, just 50 meters this way when you get out of the door, where you can continue the lively discussions over a drink and some food. So, but I think there's one last thing, right?
Yes, just very, very one last thing where I would like to, we know we have also our cherished clients in the room if they are not gone. And this is also an opportunity for us to celebrate faithfulness with us. So we would like to actually call Samartex, who's in the room. Please come with us here. Samartex has been with Prefer by Nature over the last 15 years, so thank you very much, Samartex, holding an FSC certificate with us. And hope for more years, of course. All right, thank you. Next 15 years of being with us is Coco Abrabopa. So, where is Coco Abrabopa? Mahmoud is gone. Okay, we keep that for Coco Abrabopa. Next one, we're going down to only 10 years of being with us, which is for Olam. So, Isaac, thank you very much. More years, Isaac. Another one, I know they are in the room. We would like to thank very much Lux and Lumber for their 10 years with Prefer by Nature, being FSC certified. And finally, the last 10 years is AgroEcom, which is also being with Prefer by Nature over the last 10 years. Not sure they are here? Okay, we'll keep that very closely for them. Of course, we do have also other very important clients with us, but sorry, you have not reached this milestone yet. So next time. So let's say again, thank you very much for keeping alert and listening to our presentation and for the debate. And we really believe that this will continue, right? But let's first get a reward and get some nice drinks and food as was invited by the embassy. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
And you have a small bag. Please don't leave it. It's a very humble gift from us.
Okay.